I'm James Lynch, and this is my stock report for UFC Tampa, taking a look at the biggest winners and losers from the event. This is not the last stock report of 2024. I'm going to have a year-end one coming out very shortly, looking at all the fighters this past year, whose stock went up, whose stock went down the most. But this one's pretty obvious. Biggest stock riser on this card for me is Joaquin Buckley. He has cemented himself as a top 5 fighter in the weight class. Masterclass performance against Colby Covington. Other than getting taken down in that second round, he dominated this fight. I mean, Colby's face was hamburger helper by the end of this thing. The doctor made the right call. Colby's tough. I mean, we got to give him credit for that because Joaquin Buckley, I think a lot of other fighters would have probably been out of there a little bit sooner. But Covington, showing that veteran presence and being able to survive a little bit longer. But Buckley looked dominant. He looked better than a minus 225 favorite in this fight. I mean, I don't think he was ever in any danger, didn't take any damage. And really the big thing here is the fact that Buckley remember, initially he was supposed to be in Gary. He gets Covington. He now wins this fight. He is now in that mix of, all those guys. In the top 5, you got Usman, Leon Edwards, JDM, Sean Brady, Shavkat, all these guys. So he's now in that mix with this win. And the timing worked out great because obviously Colby hasn't fought in a while, hasn't looked so good the last 2 fights now. This fight he didn't look very good in, and Buckley gets it done. So yeah, I don't think it's a no-brainer here. Again, you get a dominant performance, you're the main event, you rise to the occasion, you're going to be the biggest stock riser on this video. So Joaquin Buckley, biggest stock riser from UFC Tampa, in my opinion. Okay, let's get to the second biggest stock riser. And this is someone who's actually had a pretty disappointing year, but he redeemed himself tonight, and that is Manel Kape, getting the knockout win over Bruno Silva. Now, one thing we should point out here, he was a big favorite going into this fight. I mean, Bruno Silva's 34 years old. He's not a guy making a run to a title anytime soon. But fans have very short memories. Manel Kape's exciting. And finally, we get a knockout from him. We've been waiting from this the last couple fights for Kape. Again, the Felipe dos Santos fight, he won that fight. That was an entertaining matchup, but a little bit too close for comfort. And then he beats David Dvorak, but no finish there. But we're finally seeing a knockout. That was actually his first knockout since 2021, almost 3 years ago. So he needed that in a division where they're just dying to get another contender. That's not going to be a rematch for Alexander Pantoja. This could make sense. I do think there's a possibility of Manel Kape leapfrogging Kai Kara-France and getting the title shot here. I could see it happening just with the fact the UFC wants to see a new fight. Now, saying that, France and Pantoja fought on the Ultimate Fighter. It's not like they fought like a year ago. So I still think Kai Kara-France will probably get that. But this puts Kape in a great position regardless. They could do like him and Moreno. They could do, I don't think Royval should have to fight anyone else, but I think Royval's certainly in the mix as well. But Kape, with this win, and because flyweight is so wide open right now, I think he can insert himself into the title picture with this win. So Kape was a big winner, big stock riser on this card, and nice way to finish the year after that disappointing loss to Muhammad Mokaev, which he was at fault for that fight as well with Mokaev. He didn't perform that well in that one. Despite losing, that was a fight that didn't really scream, I want a title shot. So credit to Kape for getting the knockout win there. Okay, let's get back to our third biggest stock riser on this card. And this was another guy who was a big favorite going into this into his fight. But again, Joel Alvarez. I mean, what can you say? A huge win over Drakkar Klose, finishing him in the first round. Klose has only been finished, I think, one other time, and that was the Dariush fight. So overall, a pretty durable fighter. Like, that's a good feather in his cap. Since Dariush, that's the last time he's been finished in a fight. So Alvarez is, in a sneaky way, he's, 31 years old. He's kind of moving his way up the ranks at lightweight. He's still a dangerous guy and such a big guy for the division too. 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. I don't know how he makes the weight, but this was the type of win he needed. Again, I didn't think Drakkar Klose was, going to be making any sort of run anytime soon, but this is what you got to do if you want to live up to that betting odds that people are betting on. You got to go out there and get good finishes. So to that degree, Alvarez lived up to his minus 500 billing, and I think big things ahead for him in 2025 in the lightweight division. Okay, we got a lot of honorable mentions. I know there's people at the screen right now going, how come you missed this person? Trust me, I'm going to get to them right now. So a bunch of honorable mentions. Just couldn't put them in the top 3 because of the context and like for example, Cub Swanson, definitely a big stock riser, but what does Cub have left in his career? He could retire off this, and I think that'd be a pretty damn good career. I personally think Cub should, just because he's getting up there in age. But Cub Swanson knocking out Billy Q, that certainly has to get honorable mentions on this. The stock goes up in the sense that if he lost this, there could have been reason for maybe the UFC to release him. Although kind of looking at he was coming off a loss prior to this, so he could have been released after 2 losses. You never know, but yeah, Swanson gets an honorable mention, highlight reel finish there, as does Dustin Jacoby. That was one of the underdog picks I had this week that ended up doing quite well. Good win there for Jacoby. I think people are starting to realize that Petrino, maybe not as advertised as people think. I certainly shouldn't have been such a big favorite there. How about Daniel Marcos? Big win for him over Adrian Yanez. Obviously, close fight, split decision on the cards, but this is a big win for him, and I think he's going to have a monster 2025. With now being undefeated in the weight class. And how about Felipe Lima? Got to give a shout out to him. Great win over Miles Johns. That fight was one of the highlights on this card for sure. Lima is another guy we got to be keeping an eye on at 145 or 135. Coming over from Octagon. Really, really impressive performance there. So his stock certainly has gone up as well. Again, when it comes to doing the stock report, I like to look at sort of who's more notable out of all the fighters. And if they win, like how will that affect the division? And a guy like Felipe Lima, I think had one of the best performances on the card. But it's like we still don't know enough about him right now, despite him beating Miles Johns. So that's why I didn't have him in the top 3, in case people are wondering. That's how I determined that. Okay, biggest stock dropper. I fooled you guys. Normally I have the biggest stock dropper on the thumbnail. I did not put him on there because then people would accuse me of being obvious. So I tricked you. But biggest stock dropper is Colby Covington. There's no questions asked. I mean, Vitor Petrino had a bad fight, and Covington was not supposed to win this fight. But you have to think of the overall context. If Colby had won this fight, who knows what would have happened, right? I don't think he would have got a title shot, but he would have got a very good opportunity had he won this fight. It's not even the fact that Colby lost. It's the optics of it. He's 36. He's only fought twice in the last couple of years. And he got dominated in this fight. Like, there's no other way to put it. So, like, where does he go from here? That's why I'm kind of at the point where it's like, this could be Colby's last fight. So I don't think anyone had a bigger stock drop than Colby on this card in terms of the optics. Say what you want, like some of the other guys we're going to talk about here, but Colby's arguably the biggest name on this card. And he lost, and he did so in Tampa, where he's from, or where he trains, I should say. I had some people being like, well, Colby actually grew up in Oregon, and he was born in California. I realize that, but he lives in Tampa, so it's kind of a hometown game for him. Yeah, I mean, there's no bigger stock dropper. Like, main event, huge opportunity to rebound after that last fight. A lot of people said, oh, it was just an off night. Didn't look like an off night against Leon Edwards when he performed like this tonight. So Colby Covington, biggest stock dropper on this card. Okay, second biggest stock dropper is a guy I alluded to already, Vitor Petrino. I warned people about this on the show. Like, there's under no planet should he be minus 310 against a guy in Jacoby who is actually a very good striker and former Glory kickboxer, but he's 27 years old now. These are back-to-back stoppage losses. I think the verdict's out. This guy's not as advertised. And, at 27, suppose there's a little bit of a chance for him to turn things around. But this was, I think, a favorable fight for him considering how much older Jacoby is. He's 36. He's the same age as Colby. But, Jacoby, in my opinion, I had him winning even prior to this. I thought he was up on the scorecards. But, Petrino getting finished here. Not much to say. Don't bet minus 330 on Vitor Petrino in most of his fights because I don't think he's as advertised as some people are making him out to be. So he's a big stock dropper. And this one sucks. I hate even bringing him up. Billy Q, one of the nicest guys in the industry, entertaining fighter, was looking good early on, but another knockout loss here. And again, similar situation, from New York originally, lives in Tampa, or lives in Florida, I should say, or no, he's fighting out of Tampa. Hometown game, 36, and now he suffers another loss. That's 3 losses in his last 4 fights. He's been finished in all those losses. I hate to say it, but we're kind of getting to that point with Billy Q. It's like, how much longer is he going to fight? Like, you can't take damage like this. And yes, Swanson is dangerous. That's one of the things I talked about in the preview show, that, Swanson is one of those guys. He did the same thing against, it was Daniel Pineda. Who did he finish? We're in a fight where he was an underdog. He took out, whatchamacallit? Yeah, it was Pineda a couple of years ago. Same sort of thing. Pineda's, favored in the fight, and Swanson takes him out. So Billy Q, unfortunately, is our third stock dropper on this card. Tough loss for him here, and don't really know where he goes from here after losing this fight. And no honorable mentions here. I think this was pretty much how we thought the fight card was going to go. There's a few winners. Like, I didn't think Navajo Sterling looked that amazing. Padilla, he was an underdog. Don't know how much stock he had going in. Same thing with Miles Johns. Ramon Tavares at one point was a favorite, but I picked Davey Grant, and he ended up getting it done. So that's pretty much it on the card. So as always, I want to ask you guys, who are your biggest 3 stock droppers? Who are your biggest 3 stock risers? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a fun debate about this. Certainly a lot of different ways you can go, but like I said, I think Buckley was the biggest winner on this card, and he sets himself up very nicely for next year. And we'll see if he's able to get to that title shot, because that was a very, very encouraging performance. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching. and I'll see you next time.